We were soldiers on water, constantly moving, always vulnerable. The river was our battlefield, our lifeline, and our graveyard. The Mekong Delta, a sprawling network of rivers and canals, was both a maze and a battlefield. For the Americans assigned to riverine operations, the Brown Water Navy became the lifeline of the war. Patrolling murky waters where danger could come from hidden ambushes along the bank or the unpredictable currents beneath. The delta's beauty masked its brutality. Dense mangroves, water hyacinths, and floating villages created a surreal landscape where war seemed suspended in time, yet death lurked at every bend. We did not know why they came in such boats, but we saw them, we feared them, and we remembered. The Vietnamese villagers and guerrilla fighters had adapted to these waterways for centuries, giving them an intimate knowledge of terrain that American forces could scarcely hope to master. The river was more than geography. It was culture, livelihood, and, for some, a line between survival and surrender. The Brown Water Navy was an American improvisation. A fleet of small, armored patrol boats and swift transports designed to navigate rivers too shallow for larger ships. Soldiers and sailors adapted to life on these vessels, enduring sweltering heat, tropical storms, and the constant threat of ambush from hidden Viet Cong positions. Every mission was a delicate balance between aggression and caution, where one misstep could trigger a deadly trap. The men aboard these boats formed tight bonds, not only with each other, but with the river itself. They learned to read the water, the subtle shifts of the current, the patterns of bird and fish, the telltale signs of hidden snipers. And yet, even with training and vigilance, the Mekong Delta reminded them that control was an illusion, and courage came in small increments. The river was quiet one moment, then alive with fire the next. You had no warning, no escape, only the boat and your brothers beside you. Ambushes were a constant, invisible threat. The Viet Cong used the Mekong Delta's hidden coves, villages, and overhanging trees to strike at patrols. Mines, hidden snipers, and rocket-propelled grenades could turn a routine mission into chaos. For the Americans, every patrol was a test of nerve. For the Vietnamese, it was a defense of home, culture, and survival. On a humid morning, a small patrol boat cutting through the brown water could be suddenly enveloped by a hail of fire. Soldiers scrambled, ducked, returned fire, and prayed. The water itself became a mirror of tension, reflecting smoke, fear, and the uncertainty of life in the Delta. Yet, amidst the chaos, acts of bravery and solidarity defined the men on both sides, shaping memories that would last a lifetime.
Life on the river was not only about combat. Between missions, soldiers washed in murky canals, repaired engines under relentless sun, and wrote letters home to loved ones they might never see again. The monotony of patrols was punctuated by moments of profound reflection, the sight of floating villages, children waving from riverbanks, fishermen gliding silently through reeds. Sometimes we shared the same river but lived in different worlds. They feared us, we feared them. Yet the water connected us all. Vietnamese veteran. The Mekong was more than a theater of war. It was a community of intertwined lives. Soldiers and sailors developed rituals, small routines that kept sanity afloat. Cards in the evenings, shared meals on the deck, the quiet reading of letters. It was in these mundane details that humanity persisted, even amidst the relentless pressures of conflict. You could hear them before you saw them, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of water, then the sudden crack of a rifle. It was as if the river itself was alive and watching you. American Navy veteran. The mangroves and dense waterways of the Mekong Delta became both shield and snare. Viet Cong forces knew every bend, every hidden inlet, and used the environment to strike unpredictably. For American forces, moving silently through this labyrinth required vigilance, instinct, and trust in their crews. Each patrol brought the weight of invisible enemies and the knowledge that one mistake could cost lives. Yet the Delta held its own rhythms. Amidst the ambushes and fire, there were moments of uncanny calm, fog rising off the water at dawn, the chatter of birds, a lone fisherman drifting past. These glimpses of ordinary life in extraordinary circumstances reminded soldiers that the river was more than a battlefield. It was a living world, stubbornly indifferent to the war raging upon it. Fear was constant, but so was the bond between us. We could not choose our battles, but we could choose to protect each other. American Navy veteran. The Brown Water Navy was not defined by weaponry or strategy alone, but by the courage of men who faced a unique and relentless form of warfare. Crews learned to anticipate the unknown and to trust instincts honed by months on the river. Every act of bravery, no matter how small, reinforced the unspoken bond between soldiers and sailors, an invisible lifeline stronger than steel. Meanwhile, on the Vietnamese side, villagers and guerrillas demonstrated a parallel courage. Survival demanded ingenuity, resilience, and an intimate understanding of their environment. Both sides, though enemies, shared a profound confrontation with fear, mortality, and the unforgiving realities of the Mekong Delta. Their stories, interwoven with the river's currents, became testimonies of endurance and humanity under fire.
Night on the Mekong was darker than any fear I had ever known. Every ripple in the water could hide death. Nightfall on the Delta brought a unique terror. The patrol boats, barely visible against the dark waters, moved cautiously, ears straining for the slightest disturbance. The river became a labyrinth of shadows where every bend could conceal enemy positions. Silent ambushes were frequent, forcing crews to rely on intuition, training, and the unspoken trust between men who shared this perilous world. For Vietnamese villagers, nights were no less tense. Families huddled in stilted homes, listening to distant gunfire and the approaching engines of American boats. The darkness amplified every sound, the splash of oars, the crack of gunfire, the hurried footsteps of those caught in the crossfire. Fear was universal, binding soldiers and civilians alike in the relentless rhythm of survival. We learned quickly that the river took more than our time. It took our friends, our certainty, and sometimes our innocence. The Mekong claimed lives with cruel impartiality. Boats could be struck, mines could explode, and the line between combatant and casualty blurred. Many soldiers carried the invisible scars of seeing comrades lost to sudden violence, while Vietnamese families mourned neighbors, children, and siblings caught in the crossfire. The Mekong Delta was as much a witness to grief as it was a battlefield. Beyond physical danger, the war left psychological wounds. Anxiety, guilt, and the haunting memories of engagements persisted long after soldiers returned home. Vietnamese survivors faced trauma amid the challenge of rebuilding lives, homes, and communities disrupted by years of conflict. The Mekong Delta, with its beauty and brutality, had shaped a generation in ways that would resonate for decades. Every mission felt like threading a needle through fire. You never knew if the next bend would bring contact or death. The Mekong Delta was the stage for countless operations, each with its own hazards and stakes. Patrols involved inserting troops, disrupting Viet Cong supply lines, and escorting convoys through narrow, treacherous channels. The soldiers adapted to constant uncertainty, learning to read the water, anticipate ambushes, and react instantly. Operations required split-second decisions where courage and teamwork could mean the difference between survival and disaster. Viet Cong fighters, deeply familiar with the terrain, exploited every advantage. Boats were ambushed from concealed positions, supply caches vanished before American eyes. Villagers often served as both informants and witnesses. These operations were not only tactical exercises, but intense confrontations of knowledge, skill, and survival instincts, shaping the narratives of soldiers and civilians alike. Bravery wasn't about medals. It was about saving the man next to you while knowing the river might swallow you both. Amid the relentless danger, stories of heroism emerged. Soldiers risking life under fire to rescue comrades, medics braving ambushes to aid the wounded, and Vietnamese civilians shielding families from conflict. These acts were often quiet, unnoticed by command or media, yet they defined the humanity that persisted even in the harshest conditions. In small ways, courage reshaped the Mekong. A soldier might throw a life preserver to a drowning comrade. A village elder might guide a lost patrol safely through a hidden channel, and moments of empathy, however brief, provided a fragile bridge between enemy and neighbor. Heroism was not loud. It was measured in sacrifice, compassion, and the instinct to protect life amid chaos. You carry the river with you long after you leave it. Every sound, every smell, every face, it never goes away. The Mekong Delta left an indelible mark on those who served there. Soldiers grappled with exhaustion, fear, and the constant awareness of mortality. Long hours on the boats, punctuated by sudden bursts of violence, eroded sleep and tested resilience. Many carried unseen wounds, flashbacks, nightmares, and a lingering sense of helplessness as the river became a symbol of both duty and loss. For Vietnamese civilians, the war's toll was pervasive. Entire communities endured displacement, destroyed homes, and the loss of loved ones. The psychological burden was compounded by the constant presence of foreign soldiers, unfamiliar weapons, and an ever-shifting line between friend and foe. In the Mekong Delta, survival was not only physical, it was an ongoing negotiation with fear, memory, and resilience. Sometimes you met eyes across the river and saw a reflection of yourself in them, even if they were the enemy. The Mekong Delta was a convergence of cultures under extreme conditions. Soldiers witnessed the rhythms of daily Vietnamese life, fishing, trading, navigating canals, while conducting missions that disrupted those very routines. Language barriers and misunderstandings often led to tension, but moments of shared humanity persisted. A smile exchanged across the water, a nod of acknowledgement,
or assistance rendered to those in need. Vietnamese villagers, accustomed to the river's ways, often found themselves adapting to foreign soldiers' presence while preserving their own traditions. In these interactions, whether brief or sustained, cultural awareness became a survival tool. The river not only carried boats and cargo, but also stories, gestures, and connections that bridged, however fleetingly, the gulf between two very different worlds.
Some days it felt like we were fighting the river itself. Other days, the river seemed to fight with us. There were missions that defined the war in the Delta. Sudden assaults on hidden supply lines, extraction operations under fire, and large-scale patrols that tested the limits of human endurance. These turning points were not always victories in the traditional sense. Sometimes survival itself was the measure of success. Each mission revealed the delicate interplay of strategy, courage, and chance, emphasizing that control over the Mekong was never absolute. For Vietnamese fighters, turning points were equally profound. Every defensive maneuver, every successful evasion, and every community protected strengthened resilience and reaffirmed the importance of intimate knowledge of the land. The river bore witness to these struggles, carrying stories of triumph, loss, and adaptation that would shape collective memory long after the war ended. We were strangers thrown together by war, but the river made us family. The Delta fostered connections that transcended rank, background, and even nationality. Soldiers relied on one another in life and death situations, forging bonds that persisted long after the last patrol. Shared hardships, mechanical failures, ambushes, and sleepless nights built trust and a profound sense of interdependence that few outside the river could understand. Vietnamese civilians and fighters, too, experienced bonds among families, villages, and resistance networks that reinforced resilience and survival. These invisible threads connected lives across the Delta, illustrating a complex human tapestry of cooperation, solidarity, and enduring connection amidst a landscape defined by conflict. Every time we left the river, part of us stayed behind. The faces, the fear, the friends. We carried them all. The human cost of riverine operations extended far beyond the battlefield. Soldiers returned home changed, haunted by loss, trauma, and the unpredictability of combat. Many struggled to reintegrate into civilian life, carrying memories of comrades lost to ambushes, mines, and sudden fire along the waterways. The Mekong left its mark on their psyche, a constant reminder of lives spent on the edge of survival. Vietnamese families, too, bore profound burdens. Villages were destroyed, livelihoods uprooted, and generations scarred by the relentless conflict. The Delta's waters carried grief as much as cargo, witness to the suffering of civilians caught between two armies. In both cases, survival was only one part of the story. The emotional and psychological aftermath would endure for decades. Sometimes we floated past a village and just sat in silence,
thinking of the lives we touched and the lives we altered. After the war, the Mekong Delta was a landscape of both devastation and resilience. Communities rebuilt homes and traditions. Soldiers returned to cities far from the riverbanks, and memories persisted like currents beneath the surface. Reflection brought understanding, sorrow, and, in some cases, reconciliation. An acknowledgement that the war was not only about strategy or territory, but about human lives intertwined with the river. These reflections revealed the enduring lessons of service, courage, and empathy. The Delta had shaped those who lived and fought there, and its stories carried warnings, wisdom, and hope. Across decades, the river remained a silent witness to both the horrors and the humanity of war, a testament to resilience and the possibility of reconciliation.
Years later, we met some of the men we had once fought. We shared stories, tears, and laughter we never thought possible. For many veterans, reconciliation came slowly, sometimes decades after the war. American soldiers returned to the Mekong Delta for reflection, and in some cases to meet the Vietnamese people whose lives had been entwined by circumstance and conflict. These encounters were often emotional, bridging divides forged in fear and violence, and reminding both sides of the shared humanity beneath the uniforms and allegiances. Vietnamese veterans and civilians also carried the weight of history. They approached these meetings with caution, grief, and curiosity, discovering in former enemies faces that mirrored their own experiences of loss and survival. The river, which had once been a site of danger and despair, became a backdrop for stories of understanding, forgiveness, and mutual recognition of sacrifice. The river still runs, unchanged and eternal. It reminds us of what we endured and what we must never forget. American Navy veteran. The Mekong Delta's legacy extends far beyond military strategy or battlefield maps. It is etched in personal stories of bravery, loss, and resilience. The men and women who lived, fought, and survived along its waterways carry memories that inform not only their own lives, but also historical understanding for future generations. The Delta's rivers are now symbols of reflection, of reconciliation between former enemies, recognition of civilian suffering, and respect for the courage of those who served. Across cultures and decades, the Mekong continues to teach lessons about human endurance, the cost of war, and the capacity for forgiveness. Its waters flow on, holding the past while offering a quiet hope for peace and understanding. We remember them not as heroes or casualties, but as men who shared the river with us and never returned. American Navy veteran. The Mekong Delta claimed countless lives, leaving families and comrades with memories that could never be replaced. Memorials, reunions, and personal tributes became essential acts of remembrance, honoring those lost in both subtle and profound ways. Soldiers, sailors, and civilians alike carried the weight of absence, learning to live with grief while acknowledging the courage and sacrifice of those who could not return. Remembrance also serves as a bridge between generations.
Young people hear the stories of riverine operations not as abstract history, but as human experiences. Tales of resilience, fear, and camaraderie that reveal the enduring cost of war. The Delta, in its quiet, relentless flow, keeps alive the memory of those who navigated its waters and reminds the world of the fragility and value of life. We fought on the same water, but now we walk together on the land of memory and understanding. American Navy veteran. The story of the Mekong River soldiers is not only about combat, but about the capacity for reconciliation and the enduring impact of shared experience. Veterans of both sides, along with civilians who endured the conflict, have found ways to honor the past while building connections that transcend history. The river, once a battlefield, now serves as a symbol of endurance, reflection, and hope for future generations. As historians, veterans, and descendants recount these stories, the Mekong Delta teaches profound lessons: the human cost of war, the resilience of those caught in its currents, and the possibility for forgiveness. Its waters continue to flow, carrying with them the memory of courage, sorrow, and the enduring spirit of reconciliation, a reminder that even amidst the darkest chapters of history, humanity can prevail.
The Mekong River continues to flow, indifferent to the passage of decades, yet it carries within its currents the echoes of those who once navigated its waters. Soldiers and sailors, villagers and guerrillas, each left pieces of themselves in the delta, fragments of fear, courage, grief, and humanity that remain woven into its ever-shifting channels. For American veterans, the memories are enduring. The sights of ambushes, the sound of gunfire over water, the faces of comrades lost. For Vietnamese survivors, the river recalls resilience, survival, and the intimate knowledge of a land that sustained life even amid war. Across nations, generations, and cultures, the Mekong stands as a living testament to the complex tapestry of human experience, where sorrow and courage coexist, and where reconciliation, however fragile, is possible. The Delta's waters have witnessed both the horrors and the heroism of war, yet they also whisper a quiet hope that memory can honor sacrifice, that understanding can bridge divides, and that even in the aftermath of conflict, the human spirit endures. In the Mekong, the past flows alongside the present, carrying lessons of endurance, empathy, and the enduring quest for peace.